Hey, welcome here to a brand new episode. I'm your host, Dr. Faith Elizabeth Nanyonga. If you're listening in today, I'd like to take this minute to thank you for each and every time that you tune in to listen to me as I teach about career development and personal development. Your support is invaluable to me, and I don't take it for granted. If it's your first time here, welcome to the Frame Solution podcast. And if you'd like to be a fan, there are 3 ways you can support this show and spread the love. Every single share, subscribe count matters, so do not think your efforts go unnoticed. The first way you could support this show is by leaving a review in Apple Podcasts. Reviews not only make the world a better place for me, as the podcast gets to many ears, but also rank our podcast higher in the podcast charts. You can subscribe to this podcast so that you do not miss out any episode as they are released. And also, you could choose to be a guest on the podcast by sending in an email. The email address is theframesolutions@gmail.com. Thank you once again. Hi guys, welcome to the Frame Solution podcast. My name is Dr. Faith Elizabeth Nanyonga. If it's your first time, welcome. I'm delighted that you've joined me. In this episode, I'm going to share where I've been the last year and also share with you some of the lessons that I've learned in the previous year. I took a year off podcasting to raise my child, my daughter. She turned 1 year this month, and I feel this is the right time for me to get back into things I love. And while I was gone, I started something new that I will share with you in the course of this season. If it's your first time, welcome to the Frame Solution podcast. I'm glad that you're tuning in. I know there are many new listeners to this podcast, and I'm delighted that you are here to listen to me today. So as segue into this episode, I'm going to share with you some of the lessons that I've learned in the previous year of being off podcasting, and also set the stage for what's going to come in this season of the Frame Solution podcast. I think I love the season kind of podcasting, whereby I'll be releasing episodes based on a season. This season, we are going to talk about getting out of your comfort zone, pursuing your career, whatever career you'd like to pursue. We're going to talk about getting clear on what you want out of life. We're going to talk about overcoming fear and doubt, and lots of interesting things. So if this is something you're interested in, you are in the right place. That's been a long intro. So before I took off the time I've taken off this podcasting, I'd done a career clarity workshop with some of my clients, and many of them gained a lot. I thought I would be able to release all the recordings from the previous workshop, but when I got into my files, I noticed some of them were not complete. So if you've listened to the previous episode, you'll notice that it's cut in the middle. It wasn't completed. But what I'm going to do, I'll make sure that in this season, I share with you the content that was in that workshop. If you don't know about me, I am a doctor by PhD. I have a PhD in virology, which is virus research. And to get where I am, I've had to overcome a lot of hurdles. I've had to believe in myself. I have had to be clear on the career that I wanted to pursue. And that's what I want to bring to you who listen to this podcast. I want to share with you the steps, the strategies, the mindset shifts that I've had to adopt to get to where I am. And I know if this is something you're interested in, you're going to gain a lot of value from these episodes. There's no fluff. It's the real deal. And while you're here, if it's your first time and you haven't grabbed my free blueprint to career clarity, you can find the link in the description of this episode. Please download it and fill it in. It will help you get clear on what you want out of your career. So to start it off, let's talk about some of the lessons that I learned by taking off 1 year or so to raise my daughter. You plan, but God fulfills. Many of the times we have these big, airy plans and goals that we need to fulfill, but we don't know how it's going to pan out. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be where we want to be, but most times we can't control that. We can't control where you'll be the next 1 year. All you have to do is to plan and present your plans before God, and it seemed to fulfill your plans. The last year, I've had to learn this. I've had to ground myself in this, knowing that even if I have big plans, God is the ultimate fulfiller of my plans. I recall when I was taking off time to give birth and recover from childbirth and also look after my baby. I wanted to take off 6 months maximum to do this, and that was my plan. But as time went, I noticed my child was little. She was born a little bit on the smaller side. She was 3 kilograms, and she really took a long time for her to gain weight. I was like, if I have to go back when she's 6 months, I'll have to put her in daycare. And putting her in daycare would mean you don't know what will happen at daycare. Sometimes some kids adjust well to daycare, but others take time to adjust. When all this was happening, I was thinking about my career. I'm like, I need to be back to work, but God had other plans. And in the end, I've been home for 13 months looking after my child. It's been one of the most transformative time of my life. I've had to ground myself. I've had to reevaluate my life. I had to do a lot of things that were out of my norm. And coming from raising one child to having a second born, it kind of has a lot of intricate things that it comes with. You have to learn how to adjust to planning for two children. Like you have to know that I have two children that need my attention. So it was really something new that I had to adjust. In no time, of course, I've adjusted. It's been over 13 months since I had the baby, and I've loved my time being home. It's given me a different understanding of what I need out of my career, and it has also helped me reevaluate my values when it comes to working. So being home for 1 year has really given me a different perspective on life, and really it's been very transformative in that area. Number 2 is you are where you're supposed to be. Many of the times we want to change our direction. We want to change our current state. But if we just took time and appreciated our journey and appreciated the things that we are experiencing at this time and moment, our lives would be better. In this way, I mean, you might be at a job that you don't want, but that job is preparing you for something else. You might be in a situation that you feel you're not supposed to be there, but that situation has to happen for you to get to where you want to be. And when you read Ecclesiastes chapter 3, it talks about time. There's time for everything. There's time to be born. There's time to die. There's time to plant. There's time to harvest. There's time to talk. There's time to be silent. There's time to rejoice. There's time to mourn. When you read Ecclesiastes chapter 3, it gives you all these different times. And for us to understand this, we have to know that time happens in dichotomies, meaning that there has to be one time for there to be a second opposite time. As I've said, there has to be time for you to plant, and there also has to be time for you to harvest. So whatever season you're in your life, you have to understand that you're there for a reason, and that's where you're supposed to be. I'm not saying this to brush off whatever you're experiencing, whatever you're going through. What you have to understand is that for you to go somewhere else, you have to experience the life you're experiencing now. I'll give myself as an example. Having had a baby and been home for 1 year meant I needed to experience that 1 year. Whether that 1 year would be when I'm working or at home looking after my child, I had to experience that 1 year to get to where I am now that my daughter is 1 year. Does that make sense? Let's talk about it in terms of career. For you to become a manager, you have to experience what you're experiencing now. There's no experience that you're having that is not preparing you for where you want to be. Second example, you might hear people who come and complain like, oh, I don't love my current job is bad, I'm not liking my manager, I feel like my career is not going ahead, I'm experiencing A, B, C, D. But what's happening is that those experiences you're having at this time are giving you that perspective you need to know that since I'm experiencing A, B, C, D, I don't need to be in this place. You can only know where you want to be by knowing that where you are is not where you're supposed to be. Let that sink in. You can only know where you want to be by knowing that where you are right now is not where you're supposed to be. You need that nudging force to move you in a different direction. Physics tells us that our body stays at rest unless compelled by an external force to act otherwise. This external force could be the situations you're going through, the lessons you're learning at this current time in that situation you're in, or the mindset you're gaining in this current situation that you're in. And this is what is going to propel you to get to where you want to be. So do not forget this. You're where you're supposed to be. For you to experience any change, you have to acknowledge that where you are is where you're supposed to be. That way you can devise means and techniques to get you to where you want to be. I'll leave that at that. Number 3 is to let go of the fear. This 1 year, I've had to lay bare all my fears. I've had to get down and get to the root of all the things that I'm fearing. These fears come up in different ways. Many of them can come from your upbringing, how you were raised, how you saw the people where you were raised, your culture norms, your situations, or your beliefs. Fears come to us in different ways. And in that episode that I'm going to release after this one, I'll tell you how to get rid of your fears. I'll explain to you the exact ways I've had to let go of my fears. Anything that you feel is a fear, I'll give you the foolproof method of getting rid of any fears that you're experiencing, because this is the exact work I've had to do on myself to let go of fear. When I took 1 year off, I was very scared of this time. First and foremost, that would mean I wouldn't have a solid source of income to sustain me for a full year. And I'm a person who loves to plan. I love to budget. I love to know that there is a safety net somewhere that I need to take me through that situation. I had to let go of this fear by looking at the present. And as I've mentioned, in that present, I was able to understand the reason why I was at that present moment in my life. You have to let go of the fear that you're experiencing. Fear is not your friend. Fear is your enemy. There are very few people who use their fears to propel them into what they're supposed to do. But most times, many of us, when we are fearful, we curl in and don't do anything about that fear. You'll be scared and you just stay in that corner like a scared child in a corner and not take the action that you want to take. In anything that you want to do in life, you're not going to have a full staircase of what you're going to do laid out for you, unless otherwise. But many of the times, anything that you want to do in life, you have to make sure you take that imperfect action. Imperfect action means that you don't know where the next step is going to lead you, but you have the mindset to believe that if you take that step, you're going to get where you want to be. We've grown up in this environment where we value perfection. I am a perfectionist. When I want to do something, I want to do it to its perfectness. I want to release something when it's perfect. Even when I'm writing an email, I'll go back and forth reading that email to make sure there are no typos, there are no mistakes, the English is sounding well, because I'm a perfectionist. And this has made me not take action in many times because I want everything to be perfect. Let's say if I want to apply for a job, I have to make sure that I wake up very early. I have to sit and make sure that I'm feeling in my perfect sense for me to write that English. And I have to make sure that while I'm typing out the words, they're making sense from the first sentence. This has been my life. I've been more of a perfectionist than anything else because I want to be seen as someone who is perfect, be seen as someone who knows what they're talking about. This last year, I've had to let go of this perfectionist mentality, understanding that if I want to make anything out of my life, I have to make sure that I take that imperfect action. Imperfect action means that I'll take the step regardless of whether I know that this thing is going to work or not work. I will start that side hustle regardless of whether I know that it's going to be a profitable side hustle. Because you can't know until you've taken that step in the right direction of where you want to be. Do not let perfectionism stop you. Also in this season, we shall dive into how to get rid of the perfectionist mentality for God to let you achieve the success and the goals you have set. As a Christian, as a person advancing my career and making the best out of my life, I put God at the center of everything that I do. But most times I wasn't doing that. I would say I'm putting God at the center of everything, but when my actions do not indicate that. This last year, I've had to let God be the center of everything that I've done. I recall at the start of this year, 2023, I sat down and asked God, as I've always done, for the word of the year. My word of the year this year is nourishment. I've shared it on my Instagram and the people that follow my personal page, Faith Liz's Corner. And with nourishment, that meant that I had to be nourished. The definition of nourishment comes about that for you to be nourished, you have to be well fed, in a good state, experiencing abundancy and healthy. For me to define that nourishment meant that I had to be nourished in my mind, in my physical body, and also in my actions. Nourishment meant that I had to go back to the principles of my life, the value system of my life. My value systems I've had to define them to understand what they are. We shall also dive into how to define your value system in this season. But with value systems, I had to define what is valued in my life. The value system are the things that you hold with high regard. They are those beliefs that move you every day. For instance, your value system might be your family, it might be flexibility, it might be a sense of accomplishment, it might be having a voice to talk about the things that you value. All those can encompass your value system. And what I had to do is I had to sit down and reevaluate the things that I value. And my value system, what I came up with is I value God, I value my family, I value relationship, I value career progression, and I value flexibility. If I value career progression, how is my career progression going to look like? Do I want to settle for a job that's giving me the money, but without career progression? Or do I want a job that's going to get me somewhere ahead in 5 years from now? You know the answer. I would go with a job that would get me ahead in 5 years from now. If it's flexibility, how does that flexibility look like? Would I want to work from Monday to Sunday and not have time for my family? No, because it's going to take away from my value system, which is family. Coming down with my value system meant that I know what I need out of a job. I know what I need out of my relationships with the people I interact with and my family members. And I also know what I need as a Christian. I'm not going to go in depth of this in this episode, but I'll take you through how to define your value system and to know what things are valuable in your life to get you where you want to be in your career and your life in general. Rest is equally important as productivity. Of course, taking 1 year off work meant that most of the things that I was doing were basically for my family members, raising my children, homeschooling my son, and also taking time to rest and recoup. Actually, in this resting period, what happened is that I got very many new ideas of what I can do. That is not directly linked to my professional life as a virologist, but it's linked to my personal development as a career strategist, as a person building my personal brand. All this could only happen when I was at home. Because while you're at work, most of the times you have things to do for your bosses or your work is more demanding than anything else. What it meant that I had time to sit down and draw a plan for my life, draw a plan for things I enjoy, experiment with different things that I enjoy, take time to raise my son, resume going to the gym, resume communication, resume speech, becoming a better communicator. I had time to do things that I would not have done if I was at work and going on in my professional life. The current lifestyles we live over glamorize productivity. They tell everyone you have to be productive, you have to do ABC, you have to make sure you wake up in the morning, do 10 things off your to-do list. But that is not the case. Many of us are burnt out because we don't take time to rest. We don't take time to recuperate. We don't take time to think. We don't take time to get away from our normal lives and do something totally different. And this meant that I understood that having a sabbatical can actually be a redirection for your career. Having time off your career could be the thing that you need for you to sit down and get a new value system. Understand where you want to be in 5 years. Take time to try out different hobbies, learn a new skill, take time to network with different people. So my 13 months away from work gave me this perspective, gave me a new zeal for life, helped me venture into something different that I would not have ventured in had I been working all this time. And for that matter, I understand that for you to get ahead, sometimes you need to take a break. For you to advance your career, sometimes you need to break away from that career. And when you come back, you'll be having new zeal, new energy, a revitalized mind, and better ways of getting ahead in your career. If you haven't grabbed my blueprint to career clarity, a link will be in the description of this episode. Please grab it and let it help you get clear with what you want out of your career. Those are my lessons from my time off work. In the next episode, we shall look at how to overcome fear and to get where you want to be. If you enjoyed this episode, give me a rating wherever you listen to this podcast, and also share it with a friend whom you think it might benefit. I'm so excited for season 3 of this podcast, and I can't wait to hear from you. If you haven't connected with me on social media, the link is in the description. Catch you in the next episode. Bye-bye for now.